On January 30th, 2014, a man washed ashore on a remote island in the Marshall Islands. He was emaciated, bearded, and barely alive. He claimed he had drifted 6,500 miles across the Pacific Ocean in a tiny boat for 438 days. This is the true story of José Salvador Alvarenga. 438 days. That is the longest recorded survival drift in human history. To put that into perspective, the average person cannot survive more than 3 days without water. Alvarenga went without fresh water for over 14 months.
Alvarenga wasn't a trained survivalist. He was a humble, hard-working fisherman from El Salvador who spoke a simple dialect and lived a quiet, unassuming life on the coast of Chiapas, Mexico. On December 17th, 2012, Alvarenga was hired to go out for a quick shark fishing trip. He was accompanied by a younger colleague named Ezequiel. They packed basic supplies, food, water, and an engine that was already on its last legs.
But on the second day, a massive, unrelenting storm arrived out of nowhere. The Pacific Ocean can generate freak weather systems that swallow ships whole. For 5 days, they battled waves that towered over their tiny fiberglass boat. When the storm finally subsided, they were exhausted, bruised, and utterly lost. The engine was dead. The radio was destroyed. They looked around, and there was nothing but an endless, flat, terrifying expanse of blue. Days turned into weeks. The sun was brutal, burning their skin to a painful crisp. Their water jugs ran out. Desperate to survive, they began drinking their own urine to moisten their cracked, bleeding lips. But Alvarenga was a fisherman. He crafted a makeshift fishing line from nylon ropes and began catching small fish, which they ate completely raw, bones, scales, and everything. It was the only fuel keeping them alive.
However, Ezequiel could not stomach eating raw fish. The smell of the raw blood and flesh made him violently ill. He refused to eat, growing weaker by the day. Alvarenga begged him, but Ezequiel's disgust overpowered his survival instinct. 4 weeks into the ordeal, Ezequiel died. It was a slow, agonizing death by starvation. He simply lay down in the bottom of the boat and faded away. José was now completely alone in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
With a heavy heart, José wrapped his friend's body in a tarp and lowered him over the side of the boat, watching his only companion disappear into the dark, silent depths of the Pacific. Now, completely alone, José entered a terrifying new phase of survival. He caught sea turtles by hand, flipping them onto their backs. He would cut their throats and drink their warm blood, a vital source of salt and hydration.
He ate the turtle meat raw, slicing it into strips and drying it in the blazing sun. When no turtles were around, he caught seabirds with his bare hands, drinking their blood too, using every part of the animal to stay alive. To collect fresh water, he became a master of the elements. When it rained, he gathered every drop into empty containers. But more often than not, the skies remained cruelly blue and dry, leaving him battling thirst.
The months passed. His beard grew long and matted. His nails turned into thick, yellow claws. His skin, constantly exposed to salt and sun, cracked and peeled repeatedly.
He looked less like a man and more like a wild animal. He began to experience terrifying hallucinations. He would see ships on the horizon that vanished when he blinked. He spoke to invisible people, pleading with them to save him. His mind was slowly breaking. But then, one day, a real ship appeared. A massive container vessel cut across the horizon, incredibly close. José grabbed a bright orange life vest and waved it frantically, screaming from his raw throat. The ship saw him. He was certain of it. But then, it just kept sailing. It didn't turn. The massive steel vessel vanished over the horizon, leaving José alone once again. That moment of rejection was worse than any storm.
He cried for days. He stopped counting. He gave up on writing dates on the hull. He lay in the bottom of the boat, feeling the wood rock beneath him, and waited to die. The ocean had finally broken him. But just as he gave up, a small fish landed in the bottom of the boat, flopping right next to his head. To José, it was a message. The universe was telling him to eat, to keep going, to survive. He forced himself to sit up. He ate the fish raw. He forced himself to move his aching joints. He realized that as long as he breathed, he had a duty to fight. The ocean would only take him if he let it. 438 days after he left Mexico, something changed. The deep blue water turned a lighter, muddy green. And then he heard the crashing sound of waves breaking against a reef.
His boat crashed against the coral reef. He jumped out, his legs weak and useless, and waded through waist-deep water. His feet touched solid sand. He had found land. He was no longer at sea. The next morning, 2 islanders, a husband and wife, walked along the beach. They saw the ragged, animal-like figure. They approached cautiously, and he said the only word he knew in his broken Spanish: gracias. News of his survival made global headlines. He had crossed over 6,500 miles of the open Pacific Ocean in a 24-foot fiberglass boat. No one in modern history had ever drifted for 438 days. He was airlifted to a major hospital. Doctors examined him and could not believe the state of his body. Severe malnutrition, kidney strain, and deep vitamin deficiencies. But he was miraculously alive. He was flown back to El Salvador. When he stepped off the airplane, he collapsed to his knees and kissed the tarmac. He was finally home. He had not just survived the ocean, he had survived the impossible. A massive lawsuit followed. Alvarenga sued his former employer for sending him out in a faulty boat without a safety radio. He won his case, receiving financial compensation to rebuild his life. He published a book in 2015 called 438 Days. It became an international bestseller. In its pages, he wrote about the hallucinations, the emotional despair, and the impossible grit it took to survive. He described how he would sing to himself to pass the time. The melodies were his only companion. They kept his mind from completely shattering into madness during the long, lonely nights. One of the most chilling details of his story was the simplicity of his survival. He didn't have a flare or emergency beacon. He had a fishhook, his hands, and the will to wake up every single morning.
He has spoken about the guilt of surviving. He never forgot Ezekiel. Every time he eats a raw fish, he silently honors the friend who couldn't stomach the taste of survival.
Alvarenga never went back to the ocean again. He bought a small piece of land and built a simple house. He preferred to look at the sea from the safety of the shore, forever haunted by its vastness. His story is taught in survival schools around the world. Instructors analyze his psychology, his water collection methods, and his brutal calorie management. He is the ultimate case study in human tenacity.
Today, his battered 24-foot boat sits in a museum. It is a weathered shell of a vessel. Looking at it, you can't believe it held a human being for 438 days.
Alvarenga often said that his secret weapon was hope. He didn't look 438 days ahead. He looked 6 hours ahead. He broke the impossible down into small, manageable pieces.
The moment you give up, you have already lost. Your body can survive incredible torture, but your mind must give it permission. Hope is the most vital organ you have. José Salvador Alvarenga drifted for 438 days. He crossed an ocean that spans half the planet. He stared death in the face for more than a year and refused to blink. He is a living legend of human resilience.
If this story of incredible endurance moved you, please smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more gripping true stories of tragedy, survival, and the unstoppable human spirit. The ocean took his friend. The ocean took his health. But the ocean could not take his will. He defied the greatest body of water on Earth simply by refusing to surrender. We will see you in the next story.